Hey everybody, welcome back to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to compare a piece of hardware to plugins. We're going to take a look at the Warm Audio WA-2A hardware compressor, the LA2A clone, if you will. And we're going to compare it to a couple of plugins. We're going to compare it to the Universal Audio LA2A compressor, and we're also going to compare it to the WA-2A on a few different sources to see what sounds better. Does the hardware sound better than the plugin? Does the plugin sound better than the hardware? Do they sound equally as good? And then you can decide for yourself. And I really want to hear your comments below. So if you're someone who may be interested in some hardware and you've been taking a look at this Warm Audio piece, you can check it out with the link in the description box below, which will take you out to sweetwater.com. And full disclosure, that is an affiliate link. So if you purchase the Warm Audio or anything else using that link at sweetwater.com, I get a small commission, but you don't pay anything more for the product, and it really does help me, and I really do appreciate it. So I want to thank Sweetwater for sending me the Warm Audio WA-2A so we can take a look at it today. So here we are in Studio One, and I want to listen to this and show it to you on three different sources. So we're going to listen to it on bass, we're going to listen to it on acoustic guitar, and a lead vocal. So we're going to start off on bass. So let me show you the way I have this set up. So basically what I've done is I've taken our bass amp track and I duplicated it. And on the first track here, I've inserted Pipeline XT in mono. This is the plugin that gives you the ability to integrate hardware into your DAW with real no fuss, no muss, really easy. I have a whole video of that on the YouTube channel. You can search the archive. So we have the WA-2A going through Pipeline here. I've set up an input and an output, so the audio is going out of my audio interface through the WA-2A, then back in through my interface here, and we're processing it with Pipeline. Then next to that, I created a second track where I just duplicated the track so the performance is the same. And on that track, we are using the Teletronics LA2A by Universal Audio. Now, this is the silver vase version. Universal Audio has three versions of this plugin. This one, though, not only sounds closest to the WA-2A, but the way the attack time and the way the needle reacts to the audio is almost identical. So I think this was a really good comparison to the hardware. So that's what I have here. And then what we can do is I can just solo back and forth between the two tracks so we can hear the difference. So if we start off with the hardware here, and you'll see the image of the hardware on the screen if you don't see it already. What we're going to do is I got this compressed going pretty good, probably 5 to 7 dB of compression so we can really hear the compressor. So here is the WA-2A hardware. So what you'll hear there, what you'll see is that we're doing about 5 to 7 dB of compression. So now if we do that same thing on the Universal Audio, you'll see we're compressing about the same. And then what I'm going to do is during this, I'm going to toggle back and forth. So we're going from the plugin to the hardware, the plugin to the hardware. So here we go. So right now we're on the plugin. So now I'm going to toggle back and forth. level match that just a little bit better on the hardware. The hardware's a tad bit louder. Okay, so there's the difference. So you can see the label of the track, the hardware versus the plugin. Level matched, sounds pretty darn close. And at the end here, I'll tell you what my observations were when I was listening to it on my near fields and not just on my headphones here. Okay, now the other thing which I thought was interesting, and I'll tell you up front what I heard. So what I hear here, not as much in the headphones, but certainly on my near fields and with my subwoofer when we're listening to bass, it seems that the hardware, the WA-76, has a little bit more low end into it, a little bit thicker. I mean, we're shaving hairs here, but it's closer. The plug-in seems a tad bit thinner to me. And what I've tried to do here is another test to make this a little more interesting, is I also put up a spectrometer here on both instances. And what's great about this, let me show you this here. So we're going to open this up a little bit here, and we'll pin this. This is the one for the plugin. You can see it labeled at the top, bass plugin. And here's the one for the hardware, okay? Now, we can look at this. Let me just take a look here how we're... Third octaves, okay. And then what we can do is we can put this hold feature on here on infinity. And what that's going to do, it's going to hold the EQ curve so we can see, is there any change in the EQ curve between the two? So the one on the left is the hardware. The one on the right is the plugin. What you're listening right to now is the hardware, is the plugin, but I can toggle back and forth. It won't matter because signal's going through both of them. But watch what happens when I stop the playback. So this is the plugin. There's the hardware. So now when I stop the playback, it holds the EQ curve, and I was saying that it felt to me before I even looked at this was an afterthought, that I felt that the hardware had a little bit more low end. And you can see that in the curve here. Let me just spread this out a little bit. You can see it. Just a little, okay? You can see up here the low end. Right around this range is 90 hertz to about 100, about 140. You can see how it's got a little bit of a bump here compared to over here, right? Same frequencies right around here. So you can see there's a little bit more low end. There's also a tad bit more low end here in the very low frequencies, around 60 hertz, 56, 60, and right around here. And again, we're talking it's subtle, but the sound is subtle. But I knew I heard something that was a little different, and you can see it in the EQ curve. You can also see that in the top end of it, there's a little bit more, even though it's really low here, you can see the way the curve kind of dips off. You can see it right here, right in the center. You can see how on the hardware, it seems like it's a little thicker, even here, even from about 200, about 180 to about, what is that? 350, right? In that ballpark right there. You can see where that is on the, on the scale. And if you come over here, it's a little bit, just a little bit more boost there. So this kind of proves to me that the low end in the hardware is slightly more than the low end in the plugin on the Universal Audio plugin. Now, if I do that same test with the other plugin we can listen to here is, where is it? Come on, there it is, the LA2A by Waves. Again, I have it set up the same way, compressing pretty much the same. We can listen to it quickly here, and let me also bring back up the spectrum meter. So here's the LA2A, and I'll go ahead and I'll toggle back and forth. Let me put it on now. So here's the... compressing a little bit more of the LA2A. Let me turn that down a little bit. It's pretty close. Now I'll toggle back and forth between this and the hardware. It's hardware. Okay, gotta make sure, let me reset this because I gotta make sure that I have this set. Okay, there we go. Hardware. Plugin. Just a touch louder. There we go. Okay, interesting. So this one, the LA2A to me sounds like it has a little bit more top, a little bit more. And the low end on the hardware still seems a little thicker. And if you look at this spectrum and you look at the curve, that would be true. Look up here in the low end. From about 100 to about 200, it's a little bit more, just a little. It's not much than over here on the CLA. Also, too, you can see down in this, was it 500 range on the hardware, to about a 1K in that range here. And then you can see the curve here. So again, it's slightly different. It's not way different. It's not going to be way different. They're two completely different pieces of hardware that was emulated here. Chris Lord Algis LA2A in the Warm Audio, two different pieces of gear. But it's just interesting. This could be something that you can use, whether it's in Studio One or another DAW, you can use a tool like this to kind of compare. So you can kind of know, what are you kind of listening to? What do you kind of hear? I find it very interesting. So let me just close the spectrum. So we're not using our eyes here. We're just using our ears. So again, let's go from the hardware to the plugin, the LA2A. Start from the beginning here. Really close. Now let's go to Universal Audio again, one more time. The Universal Audio plugin. Here it is. So to me, the Universal Audio LA2A sounds a little bit thinner. Sounds great. It just sounds a little bit different than the Waves, which is totally fine. They're going to sound a little different. So that's bass, okay? So now if let's do that same test on acoustic guitar. So I did the same thing here on acoustic. I have here, let me just make sure we have our acoustic playing. We do. Okay, so I have a, whoops, sorry about that. I have a instance of pipeline here. Once again, you can see it up on the screen. You can hopefully see the meter. And then we'll start off with the Universal Audio. Same compressor as before. And let's listen to that. So we'll just go back and forth. I set them again to try to be as level matched in the same amount of compression as possible here. Again, I know it's not absolutely scientific, but it's about as close as I can get. So it's close enough for what we're doing. So here is the WA-76 by Warm Audio. Universal Audio. Okay, here it seems a little bit more subtle. The observation that I had when listening to this on near fields and just not on headphones is, once again, I wrote a note here that the hardware had a little bit more low mids. It seemed a little bit more full to me. In the headphones, I could hear that, but it's a little bit less obvious than when it was when I had it kind of turned up in the studio and I can listen to it at a pretty good volume level. So once again, if we bring our spectrum out here and we take a look at this and kind of just, same kind of a test here, just so we can see the difference. Let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. This one on the left is the WA-2A by Warm Audio. And hope I'm saying that, WA-2A. Yes, WA-2A. And this is the, right now we're listening to the Universal Audio LA2A. So once again, I will put this on hold and on infinity. And what we can do is we can listen to the two back to back and see what we like. Right now it's on, I'll keep flipping back and forth. Right now we're starting on the hardware, the WA-76. Okay, so here is our curve. So the one on the left is the hardware. So again, to me, it sounded like it had, again, a little bit more of that low mid thing kind of happening here. But when we look at the curve here, both side by side, they look, and again, it's so close, sound wise, I felt it was a little more obvious in the bass because of the low end. But if we look at the curve here, again, it's pretty spot on. I mean, it's really not any different, not really. It looks pretty spot on. And it sounds pretty spot on, maybe just a little bit, and it may be something that you can't hear or see here on a spectrometer. It also feels like to me that the Warm Audio piece, it's a little fuller and it may have a little more depth to it, or that's my perception of what I hear, where the maybe a tad bit more three-dimensional, where the plugin seems a little bit more flat in that respect. Or 2D. Again, it's not massive amounts of difference. Like, oh my God, the hardware is so much better. It's not that drastic, but there is a slight difference to my ear. Again, I don't know how it comes across on YouTube or what system you're listening back to it on, but there you go. So now let's do the same thing with the acoustic guitar, but this time we'll use the LA2A, and let's see if we got them level match. We'll start on the Warm Audio and we'll go back and forth. Here we go. Okay, this one too, I want to make sure that I got the EQ all the way flat because that's the way I have it set on the hardware as well. So I want to make sure that that's the case. I may have to level match this again. I got a little too much compression now. There we go. So again, to my ear, the LA2A sounds a little bit closer to the hardware. There's a little bit, when I was with Universal Audio, I could tell there's a slight difference between the two units. This one is really hard for me to hear the difference between this plugin and that piece of hardware. So again, that's another point of reference. So now the last thing we're going to listen to, then we'll end this video, is we're going to do the same thing on a lead vocal, okay, on a lead vocal phrase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this loop here. Okay. And we did this. I did the same thing. I went ahead and let me shut off pipeline here. So we have pipeline here. Let me turn it on. Okay, there we go. And so we have in pipeline running on the lead vocal, and then I just copied that, and we're going to go first with universal audio, and we're going to toggle back and forth. You can just keep your eye on the bottom of the channel strip here. You'll see which one's which. We'll start off with the hardware. Here is the universal audio plugin.
I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm reaching out for someone. I am reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, pretty close. And now let's do that with the LA2A. And I'll make sure that I have this all the way. The EQ, okay, I do. Let's try that again. We'll start with the hardware and we'll move over to the LA2A.
I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
And that's way, that one's louder. So let me turn that down. Level match as best I can.
Reaching out for someone. I am reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Start the phrase over.
I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm reaching out for someone. I am reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, so same thing. So my observation when listening to it on my near fields is the same thing. I felt the hardware had a little bit more low mids. I mean, more so than the universal audio. But the waves, this LA2A, sounds a little bit closer to the hardware to my ear. And if we pull up our spectrum again, oops. So we can look at this. Oh, it's not what I wanted to do. And this one. Okay, here we go. So this is this, we're listening to the LA2A, which is on the right, and we have the hardware on the left. And what I'll do is I'll put the holds to infinity so we can see the curve and kind of hold it and analyze it. So here we go. We're starting with the hardware. Let it loop around again.
I'm reaching out for someone. I'm reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm reaching out for someone. I am reaching out for you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
CLA on that last note seems like it's a little bit more open, but again, if we look at the EQ curve, and again, it seems like, let's see. So it seems like here in that lower mid, I could see right here around that 200 area, a little bit beneath 200, right up in here. Look at the curve up in this area, and then look at it over here. It's a little bit lower. And again, we're talking slight, I get it, but it's a couple of dB at 200 hertz or so. The hardware is a little bit more thicker in that area, and that's what I thought I could hear, is I could hear that a little bit. The rest of the EQ curve, again, not too drastic, not too much different. In the very low mids here, or excuse me, the very low ends, looks almost identical. It's really up in this area here between about 140 and about 350. You can see it's got a little bit more of a bump than over here. And so that's interesting. So again, very, very similar. So that is 3 different examples of the warm audio WA-2A versus two of the most popular LA2A plugins on the market. Yes, there are many others. And if you want to check out my live stream that I did a few weeks ago, you can check the playlists here on my channel where we shot out, I think, 5, 6, or 7 different LA2A plugins together. I'm not going to do that all in this video because all of those LA2A plugins sound very similar to each other, as they should. And so I wanted to pick the ones that are usually the most popular, which is Universal Audio and CLA by Waves. Sounds great. So what's the verdict? Is the hardware better than the plugins? Well, my opinion is, I don't know that it's better. It's a little different. To me, on the near fields, when I'm listening in my studio, the hardware has a little bit more open bottom, a little bit more low mid thing on the bass guitar, a little bit more thickness on the bottom. And to me, the one that sounds closest to that warm audio is the CLA. The Universal Audio seems a little bit more two-dimensional, whereas the warm audio and the CLA seems a little bit more three-dimensional. But again, it's subtle. It is very subtle. So whether you think hardware, in this case, the warm audio piece, is worth investing in over the plugin, well, it really depends up to you. If you're someone who likes using hardware, you like using a hybrid system, you like having the physical gear in your studio so you can reach out, grab the knobs and touch it, or for when you're tracking more or less than mixing, or more so I should say than mixing, when you're tracking, you may find it easier to just use hardware, dial in something, get a little bit of compression when you're recording. When you're mixing, it's maybe 6, 1/2 dozen of the other. It really depends on workflow. I will say that I'm impressed with the warm audio in that I know the plugins, both the CLA and the Universal Audio, are very close to the original and the real LA2A compressors. And so if they're darn close, or they're 98% of the way there, or even 95% of the way there, that means the warm audio is going to sound very close to an original LA2A. Now, the price difference between the two, the warm audio is $899 as of the recording of this video over at sweetwater.com, and on a real Teletronics made by Universal Audio, LA2A, is about $3,500 or $3,600. So, value, bang for buck. The warm audio's got a nice piece of hardware here. If you want to check it out, the link will be in the description box below, as well as the links for both Universal Audio and the Waves plugins. All of those could be purchased at Sweetwater if you want to check them out. And again, that is an affiliate link, so I thank you in advance if you decide to make a purchase. But I think the warm audio is a good piece. Is it better than the plugin? I wouldn't say it's better. It sounds a little bit different, a little bit more three-dimensional. I like it. I'm impressed with it. I haven't really spent a lot of time with warm audio stuff, so I'm pretty impressed with what they have here, but I'd like to know what you think. So leave comments below. What did you think? Which one did you like better? Does it really matter? Are you a hardware person, a plugin person, or both? What do you think? I'd love to know. Leave comments below and come back for the next video because we're going to do the same thing with the 1176. Check that out as well. If you haven't been out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com yet, go out there. I have a free mixing course I want to give you. It's right on the homepage. It's my gift to you just for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And until the next video, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.